Hello everybody. I'm going to shoot a quick video covering a question I get pretty consistently, whether it's at work or whether I'm actually my latest and greatest was at a customer site just the other day where they had pretty it's a larger size building. It's 2 floors. They have it's very long and very narrow, and it's older. The building I think was built in like the early 1930s or 40s or something like that. Um, but the problem with the way that it was laid out, it was more than 100 meters from uh, where the ISP drops the internet connection off in the basement to from the basement to the first floor to the second floor to the opposite side of the building. If you were to go have a uh, building, it was shaped a lot like this. So um, you would have your ISP would drop. Oh, let me do this. Your ISP would drop in here, and you would have your main distribution frame right in this area. Well, imagine that uh, your basement here, and then you'd have your MDF and stuff like that. Your wiring would go up the wall through the ceiling, and then to the first floor and the second floor, and usually like a server room or something like that. Well, the problem was this distance right here was longer than 100 meters, so I had to come in and they actually had a closet. It was actually a coat closet, and I put a 24 port switch up against the ceiling with the power supply. I had an electrician run a line here, so actually I was able to run cable this way and then this direction connected into the switch, and it was just about the limit. It was like 100, it was like 90 or 85 meters or something to that effect when I did the cable test, and then I was able to disperse a switch here and a switch here. They have 5 switches there, five 48 port switches. So it's a pretty big building when you think about it in total size. But what I did is I took a picture of Packet Tracer and I brought it in here so that I could actually just draw on it and show you what I mean by different things and go from there. So how does it get dispersed? Well, a lot of what you're going to get at the CCNA level is you're going to get routing VLANs through router on a stick. Well, this is not a router on the stick per se. This is more of a your X. Okay, this would be your core layer right here. This would be your core. Actually, let me go a step bigger. This would be your core. That's better. Core is here. You have your distribution right here. This would be distribution, and you have your access. Okay, distribution, and then you got your core. What does that mean? Well, your access layer is what all your computers plug into. So you have computers plugged in here, and servers, and printers, and wireless access points, stuff like that. Your distribution layer would be, now these are going to be your 2950s, your 2960s, your uh, those are the only two switches I ever deal with in production. Or maybe a 3550 or 3560 typically, because it's got the if it's not a PoE switch, you can pick up a 3550 switch on eBay for like $100. And in a 2950 it'll run you like, I think I paid like $15 for one on eBay. I shopped around for a couple days and eventually I found one. But this is what your access layer does. Now your distribution layer, you could theoretically run a 3560 or 3550 as your distribution layer because the fact it's got the capability of doing layer 3 routing. So you could have your VLAN set up on this guy. So you could have VLANs here, you could have VLANs here, you could have VLANs here, and then what you end up doing is on this guy you have this, you have your trunk port set up here to this guy, and then you have SVIs, so your switch virtual interfaces set up so that um, you can have your subnets, your 10, your 20, your 30, and so on. So like you have your Wi-Fi on a VLAN, you have your servers on the VLAN. Let's say for instance you have public. So like if you have people coming in off the street, like contractors, stuff like that, you could have them on the public Wi-Fi or the public LAN, so that and you would set up access lists that that particular subnet, when they would log into it, they just go online, they'd open a web browser, and you'd have it set up to where they would click that they, whatever your statement would be, they would accept the terms, and then they would be given just HTTP access, and then they'd be able to go out there, and they would have no protection, because it would just be a pretty much a straight pipe from the port that they're plugged into, or the wireless straight up to the internet. But nobody else would be able to use that, so it wouldn't be routed. It wouldn't be a routed VLAN into your internal network, so they wouldn't be able to print internally on your network. So, I mean, ACLs take care of that for you, and I'll show you a video on how ACLs work and what you can do with them. But that's the basic concept. So now this would be the distribution layer. Now what you would do is, your distribution layer switches are typically a lot faster. They're a lot stronger. They have layer 3 capabilities. They're overall, they're just going to be a beefier switch, where and they're typically a lot bigger. You know, you can get 3560s. I have two 3550s here at home. This is a 3560 right here. So what I end up doing is, typically if I'm going to set up an MDF, what an MDF is, it's let me see if I can draw a box real quick. Let's do a different color. Okay, we're gonna kill that guy. You're gonna have a rack. Let's say this is a rack. We'll do an MDF rack. Okay, and this MDF rack is gonna have, let's say for instance, you got your UPS here at the bottom. Okay, this will be your UPS, and then you'll have you'll have your blade servers. Okay, your blade servers will look kind of like this, and they'll just be sitting in here. And then you might have a SAN array up in here, like a bunch of hot swappable, like say 300 gig or maybe terabyte SAS drives, to where you can just plug and play. And then you might have I'm just recalling what my MDF was just working on had. Let's say for instance you've got a 24 port switch. Oh, you got a 48 port here, then you have another 48 port here, then you have a 48 port here. So that's your MDF. So that takes care of the majority of your network right there. And then you have a beefier switch on top of that, and then you'll have a router, and then maybe like a firewall. Especially your MDF, you're going to want to have a firewall. So you might have like an ASA 5500, like a 5510 or 5520, a 5540, something like that. And 5505 would pretty much be about that big. A 5510 would be about this big. Now these aren't scale, obviously. This a 5505 is really small. It's no really bigger than a home Wi-Fi router. You know, my little Linksys router here, it's probably about the size of like one of those box meals you get from Walmart. That's like 6 inches wide and maybe 6 inches deep. And then your 5510 is going to fill up an entire rack. It's a 1U width, and then a 5520 is going to be about the same, but a little bit taller. And then a 5540 is a little bit deeper than that. And then 5585 I think is 2U, which means it takes up, this would be a 2U, this would be a 1U. Okay, so this would be your MDF. Now your IDF would be about this big. And then what you would do is you would have well, what I did was I have a 24 port layer 2 switch up here, and all this does is this is acting like a repeater, and all it does is it plugs in, and it's I only had 2 ports connected to it, or I should say I had 4 ports, 2 ether channel lines coming in. Actually, it was fiber. I take that back. It was fiber optic, and it was running 10 gigabit fiber from the 35 or there was a 4500 in this rack here, and then there was I dropped a 2950 in here with the not a third. I'm sorry, it was a 3550. I'm actually having to pull up uh, documentation from the actual job, and then I had the 3550 in here. Then I had two 2950s, two 48 ports below that, and that was distributing. And this guy was acting as uh, my layer 3 switch. So I was actually running. Um, okay, that's good. I was running two ports like this and two ports like this, so that they were because it didn't have the stack member option for the 10 gigabit backplane. So this is what I was doing. So now imagine this guy like 90 meters from this guy. So this guy, if I was to draw the building out, the MDF was right here. This is the MDF. And then the IDF is over here. And this is 90 meters from here to here. So you're running your cable through the building and set up here, and then your IDF is right here. So your IDF and your MDF are there and here, and you're running cable to all the workstation. So that's I didn't actually have to run the cable. Somebody else was there to do that for me. But the concept right here is you could either do layer 3 switching or layer 2 switching, or layer 2 switching. Layer 3 switching, which means you use a distribution layer switch to do your routing, and then you have um, a router set up so you can get off to the internet. Because what they ended up doing was they had a pipe coming in here for one um, AT&T coming in, and they had a gigabit MPLS. Um, uh, or was it a gigabit or was it? No, I'm sorry. It was they had a 20 meg coming in here. So they had 20 meg Metro E. That's what it was. Metro Ethernet. It was a layer. It was they drop it in here to a Metro E box, and then they had a T1 coming in here. So they had what was it? A 2900. They had a 2900 with a T1 WIC card up here in the IDF. So the 2900 sat in here, and it had the WIC, and it was connected into here. So this was a backup. So I set that up as the backup. So um, but that's basically how you would set up if you were doing the wiring. So the basic concept is real simple. So if like I shot a VLANs video last night and how to route them, and this is kind of a bigger picture on how it's supposed to actually work. So what ends up happening is um, device plugged in here. We'll say it's a PC. That's my PC picture. It comes in here, and then depending on which VLAN it's going to go to, it would come across the wire here, and then we're just assuming that this guy right here is just forwarding it to here because we're going to do the router on the stick real quick. So this guy comes up here and shoots up to this guy right here, does its routing on its internal routing, and then shoots it back here, and then back to here, and then let's say if the server's not on this guy, it would shoot it out this one, and then that the server was, this is the server. I got an HP Blade server right here, or an HP Pro Curve. I think a Pro Curve is a router though. So we're gonna like a ProLiant server. So or you had like a VMware box or something like that. So that's what will end up happening. So see how far back I can take it. So that's basically how it would work. It's really not that it's not a difficult concept, but it's one thing to understand how to configure the VLANs and do router on a stick and get the routing to work, and maybe some basic ACLs and some NATs so that you can get your public and private. This would be your outside for your NAT, and this would be your inside. So you would have your public IP address, or I'm sorry, your private IP address So you put your subnet in there that you want to translate for, and then you'd have your translation out here, what IP address it would be going to. So NAT is not a very difficult topic to figure out, but I'll I'll do a video on that, how that works too. But where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought. Surprise, right? Not really. But that's basically how it works. So now it's a whole other thing for CCNAs to walk into a building and actually be able to do something. Now I'm not saying CCNAs aren't qualified to walk in and to handle things, but theoretically a CCNA is somebody that can do basic switching, basic routing, basic troubleshooting, and that's about it. You're not going to get a CCNA to come in and redo um, your entire network in here. Now, I don't even have a CCNA, okay? And should I be bagging on a CCNA? Well, not really, but my experience goes beyond that. So working in the real world has given me experience in knowing what to do and how to do it. So, am I qualified, to go in there and set it up? Yeah, actually I am. I can go in and configure everything that needs to get configured. That's why I'm shooting video explaining how you're going to run your cables. So there's a there's a thing called plenum 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 rated cable. If you don't know what that means, it is very simple. It is non-toxic. So non-toxic meaning that if it starts to burn, it doesn't put off toxic fumes into the air. So if the building catches fire, it's designed, or it's near HVAC, um, you won't have to worry about it catching fire. Now there is also called there's UTP, Unshielded Twisted Pair, which is just regular full flat old Ethernet. Okay, you got your Ethernet. Then you have STP, which is shielded twisted pair. So, in twisted pair, you have your eight wires, doing their thing and going along, doing their thing throughout the day. You got your jack at the end, you know, doing its thing, plugged into the switch port. Now, with STP, same wires, okay, same wires as this guy right here, except for the fact that they're foil wrapped, so that the as long as the current is going or the transmission is going across the wire and it's spinning like this, it stays inside. So there's actually you got your wire going, like, you got your wire, and then there's going to be, let's say this is the copper wire here, and you got the other copper wire here, and it's inside of this little sheet. Now imagine these are getting twisted together, okay? These are twisted, and this guy is like that, is twisted inside. What ends up happening is you take like aluminum foil almost is what it looks like, and you put it inside that. Now there's another another one for this one, another one like this, another one like this. Now these are spinning. These are all spun, and you get your exterior like this. So you have your wire, your wire there. Then you have a wire here. Then you have a wire here. Now this is all the wire inside. So this little dot is the actual wire itself. This right here is the plastic coating around it. This guy right here is the plenum. I'm sorry, the shielding around that one, and then you have the plastic coating going around that. So that's basically how it works. Now, regular twisted pair, it's going to be same concept except without this. So it'll be, you'll have your wires and stuff like that. I'm not going to redraw that, but you get the idea. So that's how it works. So you're going to want to put stuff, or you're going to put wires where, if you have, let's say your lighting goes this way inside the building, you're going to want to run your cables parallel. If they're running through the ceiling, parallel to your lighting, not across it. And you want to make sure that you keep your wiring away from any microwaves and especially microwaves and lighting. So if you have lighting running this way, you're going to want to run your cable along this wall, then to this wall, then down the wall to the floor, and then wherever it's got to go. So if you have the luxury of being able to run it under the floor, or you can do like a raised floor, or if you actually have to have um, like a well, one building, the building I work in every day, um, the network operations center, we have raised floors, so everything just comes up to the floor. But if you work in an area where it's just a concrete floor and you got carpet and you have cubicles on the outskirts, so like you have cubes set up, on the outskirts of the wall, it's easy to run cable along the wall and then just drop your lines into each one, whether it's you're running voice or just regular analog. And then if you have cubes out here, it's one of those things where you might have to just have a trunk line going up to the ceiling, and then you drop your cable down it, and then through the cubicles, and if you just funnel through the cube walls to wherever they gotta go. So that's basically how you would do it. That's the basic concept. So this is more of a cabling video than anything else, and show how you would set up your UPS, which is your uninterruptible power supply. So if you lose power to your to the building, you'll at least have enough time to um, power down your servers and your routers and your switches and stuff like that. So we got server. Like you may have a SAN array, which you might be running like EMC. Now, typically, if you're a large organization, you're going to have multiple of these in multiple racks. But like you're a small company, you got one building, you have your MDF. This is where this stuff's going to sit, and you got your switches in the rack as well. And then all of this stuff. Now the front of it's going to look all pretty. You're not going to see anything really. The back side of it's where going to be all the ugly cabling and stuff like that. There's actually I'm gonna have to steal some video or some pictures. Actually, you know what I could do real quick is while I'm sitting on the MDF picture. Okay, this is perfect. This is actually exactly what I was looking for. Let's see, can I blow it up just a little bit? So basically, what you can see here, what you see is you got lots of cabling. The cabling isn't bad, but can I zoom in on? Hey, what do you know? I can zoom in. So um, if your MDF looks like this, that's not too bad. But like I said, these are your racks. So like this is a patch panel right here. You can see these are switches right here, and then these guys are going up to here. Now patch panels are really convenient because what it allows you to do is it allows you to run a line from the patch panel to the junction box, or I'm sorry, I call them junction boxes, but the junction box would be where your computer will plug in to the wall in your cube. Well, that's what I call a junction box. You might have two of them there. One's going to be PoE, one's going to be regular straight data for your IP phone versus your computer. Well, what that's going to do is that junction box is going to run back to this patch panel. And what's going to happen is it's going to drop into this patch panel. On the back side of this patch panel you're going to take the end of the wire or the cable. You're going to cut it. You're going to peel back the shielding, and then you're going to plug the different colored cable or wires into each one of the color coded jacks that are on there, and you're going to push them down with what they call a punch down tool. You're going to punch them into this little patch panel, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take a patch cable. That's where the patch cable term comes in, and you're going to run a patch cable from right here and it's going to run through the racking, or depending on how they have it set up here, I can't really tell, but it looks like it runs from here down, up, and then it comes back in, and then it runs into here. So, and this would be going from the switch to the patch panel. The patch panel through your run through your wall, through your ceiling, down to your um, down to here. So, what'll end up happening is it'll come leave the patch panel, and then it'll come out of your MDF. It'll run along the line. Let's say you got cubicles over here to a junction box. Let's say you got a junction box right here in a cube, and then your from here is going to go to the computer. Does that make sense? And then the communication will be. Now, here's the only kicker with that. Uh, Ethernet right now has a maximum distance of about 100 meters. I mean, you can be just a hair longer, but I never recommend going longer. So when they say 100 meters, that's not 100 meters from the junction point on the wall to the patch panel. That's from the switch port to the back of the computer. Okay, so that distance has to be 100 meters or less. Anything longer than that, you're going to run into a situation with the distance being too long. You're going to lose speed. You're going to have errors. So if you were to look at the switch port, it's going to show errors, and you're going to have dropped frames and stuff like that. So it's just going to not going to be cool. So that's basically how that works. So coming back to this guy, if you have the luxury of where was I at? There's another picture here. Which one? What does this look like? Okay, this is a really clean one. But as you can see, this is a 6500 chassis switch right here, and you've got. Can I zoom in on that? Not really. I'm making it smaller. I gotta zoom out. So let me just come back to this, and that's not exactly what I was looking to do. Can I? Well, that's kinda. Okay, well this is actually this is a good example too. As you can see, you got an electrical guy dropping cable down, and you see the runs. Now this is before it's dropped in, and if you look up here, you can see the cable bundle coming in, dropping down. Now this is where it's running back into the building and other places. Now this cable right here would all be punched down into the punch panel, the patch panels, and then once it's punched down, you can run from the patch panel. You could run from the patch panel. You could run into the switch, and then it would do its thing from there. Then you have from the switch to the router or stuff like that. So that's basically how you would do it. But I don't see. Actually, I was looking for a really good picture of. Actually, let me do images. Oh, here's a patch panel right here. This is the patch panel. So what you would do, I think this is a punch down, but I think this is for what do you call it? This is for like analog voice, because the cables, there's only two of them coming in. So this would be how it would do. You'd punch it down. And this is actually kind of a bad picture because it's not exactly what I was looking for. But what do we have over here? Okay, that's a punch down tool. Actually, this is exactly what I'm looking for. That's a cable tester, actually. Um, what this would do, all these little things right here, you would put the different colored cables. 'Cause this is Ethernet, and as you can see, that's the RJ45 jack. You would punch it down, the little wires into here from your run, and then you would plug in the Ethernet according to this, and it would work. That's basically how. This is Fluke Networks. That's a really good company. They have put on a lot of really nice products. But let me see if I can find another. Um, that's not too bad. That's actually pretty clean. And as you can see on the back wall here, you got here your incoming internet and stuff like that. And um, it's kind of hard to see, to be honest with you. But uh, let me see if I can find a logical diagram that I just saw. Uh, well, here we go. This is this is the three-layer, the hierarchical model. You got your MDF right here. You got your four or your major IDFs. Now they're saying in different buildings, which is theoretically possible. This is the way you would do it, to where you'd have your MDF, but this is more of a theory than realistic because if you have your different buildings and then you have a layer 3 switch, and you have layer 2 switches, and then you have them, redundancy at the wazoo. Then you have your WAN connectivity. This isn't realistic. This is more of a if you had a buildings in the same campus, maybe this would work. But if you're more of a campus model, but with the CCNA level, you're going to run into router. Okay, imagine a connection from this switch to this router, and then these switches would all be in line, linked up, and then they would be talking to the router, and that's how you'd route your VLANs. Well, in the CCNP, you'll run into it where they do local VLANs, which means that the VLANs will be locally significant, meaning that VLAN 10 on here would have a different subnet, more than likely, than the VLAN 10 over here. They'd be independent of the building, meaning that they would only be specific to the building itself. So if this building was running the 10.0 network, or 10.0/24, this guy was running the 20.0, 30.0, 40.0, that this one would have VLAN specific to it, and then what you would do is you would route your VLANs on the layer 3 switch, and then the layer 3 switch would be running a routing protocol like EIGRP, OSPF, RIP, BGP if you're so inclined, and then it would be routing everything in between the buildings, where you would take the concept of your spanning tree and it would stop at the layer 3 switch. So it would be spanning tree as far as these switches are running. And then you wouldn't, as soon as you would leave here, the red would be indicating routing. So you would leave the layer 3 switch going this way, being routed layer 3, and down here would be layer 2. So you'd be doing frames in here and spanning tree. Up here you'd be doing routing and much way faster convergence. So that's basically what you would want is that. So that's basically how it would break down. But now this is actually a really good picture. Very clean. You have a chassis switch right here. You have an ASA right there. You have a I can't tell by looking at it, but this is a router right below it. Then you have all your switches going down. Then you have your connections going into your chassis switch right here. These are all patch panels that they're connected to, and then you have your switches over here. So these would all be patch panels, and these guys coming in here. This line would drop in here and be plugged into the back of these guys right here. So your ASA is doing your firewall, probably your natting, your staple packet inspection, stuff like that. And then you have your like a 6500 switch doing this stuff, doing your routing and stuff like that. This guy would be connecting your I can't tell by looking at it, but this to me, these green cables, I believe, are fiber from the looks of it, because you're gonna probably this is probably a 3750 right here, but I really can't tell by looking at it, so I don't know. I'm just kind of guessing at that, um, but that's basically how it works. This is more of a real world type of situation, which what you could see um, going going from there. But I'll have to take a couple pictures of my setup here at home so you guys can see it. And I mean, it's nothing spectacular. It's actually really boring. Um, it's it's not production. Oh, that's really clean. Um, and actually, that is um, these are all patched in. Yeah, this is the patch panel right here. These are patched in, and then these are going to go drop in. This is the back side of a patch panel, so all these guys are patched in. If you were to come to the front side, that's where you plug your RJ45 into, and then this would go to your switch. So that's how that would work. But that's an IP phone, and that's all I'm finding really. Um, a lot of the same. I mean, now you do have rolling carts where it looks more like a something you'd see in the hospital, but that's pretty much about it. I mean, I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what you could deal with walking into a situation. I mean, it's not a very good uh, look at it, but at least gives you an idea. So I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.